So when it came to deployment, I thought there were some advantages to going second, just from the perspective of, in this mission, there was 3 additional crater terrains added to it, and I think I'd rather them be in places where I would rather them be than where I would want the Kithguard player would rather want them be. Don't give that advantage to Gaston. Also, the fact that he doesn't have to deploy everything into his list, it makes it challenging for me to counter deploy. So going second, having control of the terrain, having control of the placement. I may not necessarily have the tempo, but at least I can set myself up. With this mission, it's pretty much going to be controlling the flag and shifting the table from a front to front approach, where basically we're across from each other, to tilting to the right so that I can have more control over my objective and his flag, and then try and go for a scenario push.
My opponent won the roll-off and opted to choose sides. He picked the one with the better scenario terrain, which, annoying, but I generally really like going first so that I can be more aggressive on tempo. Now deployment, super simple. Craghorn in the middle, and a beast on each side. Easy stuff. One of the things that I absolutely love about playing Kithguard is deployment. It feels so good to just put down a couple models and just pass to my opponent, this is now all your problem, and everything else that I have is just on a sideboard. A big advantage of this army is that so much of it just has ambush and advanced deployment that you have the near perfect knowledge of where you want to place your units. In this case, my opponent set up for kind of like a refused flank, stacking a lot of his infantry heavy hitters on one side of the table. In response, I opted to keep the scrappers in tunnel ambush and to start the fire spitters on the table, but I did start them within 6 inches of Craghorn, and I ended up loading 2 tunnel markers on the heavy flank of my opponent with 1 to the other side. They're going to be pretty far up. I really want to be aggressive with 2 of them, and I have 1 kind of in the back, so that way the frogs can go hop in it, turn 1 after Craghorn puts his spell on them. Now, one of the things is I probably was a little too conservative with that back tunnel marker, and I could have pushed it up a little bit further. And that's one of those things that you're kind of get a feel for. It's kind of tricky with 50-point games. You don't quite know where everything's going to end up. Otherwise, Rattles, he's going to go near the markers to kind of support them. He's going to be able to manipulate them, move them around. And then Felai is going to set up on my scenario terrain. He is a perfect solo piece for this. He's going to get all the benefits of the scenario terrain, and he still has his sniper rifle. He's going to be able to contribute as the game goes on. At the start of the turn, it's just a lot of pre-measuring, understanding my opponent's threat ranges, and how aggressive I can push forward. I also like to plan out where every unit is going to end up before really making any moves. And even if you feel the pressure of the clock, it's important to take that deep breath, slow things down, and make sure you know where you want each piece to end up. So you can see here, what I'm basically measuring and marking out is the threat range of my opponent's shooting. Turn 1, it's always spells and shit. So I'm going to end up putting tactical supremacy on the froggies, countermeasures on the Virager, and my opponent doesn't have a lot of shooting to threaten Felai, and so the Virager can in there, it can jam things up, so it just felt right. Putting on him, typically you are going to put countermeasures on something with stealth. Again, that's why I mentioned Felai, but in this case I don't think it's a big deal. So Spiny Growth is naturally going to go on Craghorn. He just has that from Attuned Spirits. So after my spells are going to go up, I'm going to march my froggies into their tunnel. They're going to get removed from the table, and that's going to gain tunnel ambush from them. So now they normally have regular ambush, and here I'll bounce a little froggy into the trapdoor for you. So they normally just have regular ambush. This way they get tunnel ambush and they have actual access to using the trapdoor markers. Then we're going to have Private Rattles. He's just going to move on up, and he's going to push that trapdoor marker just a little bit up and a little bit towards the flank. Again, what I'm trying to do this turn is start setting traps, and not just trap doors, but actual traps for my opponent. And the flexibility of Kithguard is such that you get to set up these options, and then you're going to see the next turn what ones you actually want to use. So now, on this flank towards the top of the video, I've got 2 trapdoor markers, and this is going to do is allow me to kind of create a layer of aggression. I have 1 aggressive forward trapdoor marker, that's right on the center line, that's kind of threatening my opponent immediately, and then I have a supporting marker behind it. And so, if I don't want to come out the front one, I can always come out the one behind it. And what they're going to do is they're placed that way so I can not only cover, what's going forward and what's kind of coming towards the center of the table, but also if I want to have anything come in from the edge and just ambush normally, those trapdoor markers are going to support that. The other thing you can do with the trapdoor markers is tempt your opponents too far forward, pull them into threat ranges, and that's why we kind of push them far forward and have a door behind them in support. So, if you don't cover over the trapdoor, the front, then you get the jump on them with the front one, but if they do cover over the front one, then you can just pop out behind them. And if they try to go around, then you still have access to all the old school ambush techniques.
So for turn 1, it's going to be a lot of the standard stuff you would see. We're going to push forward. We're going to make sure that we stay outside of engagement range where we can. So right now I'm checking like where it's Craghorn's threat, what's the Vroger's threat, and try and just identify places where I can put myself so I'm not handing over any necessary free charge or free trades from a straight Craghorn charge or anything like that into my heavies. From a scoring scenario, as I mentioned in the deployment, that bottom flag of my side is just going to be controlled by probably the champion all game. I'll sit on that objective and just score the point with the solo, now that solos can hold flag objectives. I'm going to position both my tyrant with the gun and my caster, so the tyrant holds the secondary objective. The gun allows him to contribute to the game without necessarily having to be in a melee position, so he can score the objective and still contribute. And then obviously we're going to have the caster nearby, both from a focus point, but also from the ability of he is a backup scorer for that objectives, with warcasters being able to score. One of the things that I want to kind of take a moment to talk about as I'm going through my turn 1, and you're going to see this throughout this turn, playing against Kithguard is a very interesting game because it is a heavy cognitive load on the opponent. As it stands right now, Gaston has a unit of the frogs that went into the tunnel at the beginning of his turn, but then he also has the scrappers also in the tunnel. So I'm not necessarily playing an honest game of Warmachine here because I don't have all the information that he has. I know where they could come out from the fact that he's got the trapdoor markers and I can see where they're positioned. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to guarantee where they're coming out, because there's 3 different places that could occur. Not to mention with the fact that they can use their trapdoors to cast spells, he may end up casting a spell using a trapdoor marker and then having private rattles turn around and put down another trapdoor marker on the table that I'm not familiar with. Now, there's a range to that. I can try and measure that out. But all of this effort that I'm talking about is cognitive load. Not to mention, with ambush, they don't have to use a trapdoor marker. They can come off of the edge of a table. So now I've got thinking about the standard stuff that we're thinking about. What's the threat range of Craghorn? What's the threat range of the Vroger? But also now I've got to turn around and go, and where can they turn around and come in off the trapdoors? Could they come in off the side? This is all taking up time, but more importantly, it's taking up effort to think about. What that means is I'm spending a lot of time trying to prevent bad things from happening, but I don't have all the information, so I can't guarantee that bad things are happening. And while I'm spending all this time trying to make sure that bad things don't happen, I could potentially be missing something because I'm thinking about something else. It's not necessarily straightforward, and I think that's one of the challenges playing into Kithguard, is making sure that you're managing your cognitive load without necessarily just shutting down and spending too much of your time on it. Now, we're playing Battles on the Frontline, so there's no clock here, but nonetheless, I don't want to necessarily have a game where I'm playing for 2 hours and Gaston only plays for 30 minutes because I take up all the time and we have to go home to family and stuff like that. So I'm going to position the caster, make sure he's not necessarily in threat. I'm going to get the Ravager up to put Craghorn kind of on notice without necessarily just letting Craghorn just charge across the table and pick him up. And also it allows there to be like a little bit of a speed bump so that they don't immediately go for my champion that I'm going to be putting on the flag. You'll see near the top that I put the execrators near the log, and that is just to kind of position them so that they get cover away from the sniper shooting. And if I can bait out a free vengeance, great. It'll allow me to get into position to potentially get a throw of the thunderbolts or a charge. So let's see how the next turn goes.
Time to enact my master plans. Insert evil laugh here. One of the things I'm really big on in the early game is taking low risk shots at my opponent's units just to remove a model or two. The difference between a full strength unit and a damaged unit is actually really surprising. You'd actually be amazed the impact that just removing one guy will do. It can often be the difference between like a heavy surviving on the charge. To that end, I'm looking to bring my baby frogs out of the trapdoor. Additionally, my opponent has really left kind of a weakly held flank down on the bottom side, and so I want to bring around the Vroger, the big frog, and I want to buddy cop it with Clangor in order to pull off a low-risk peace trade. As with turn 1, the first thing that you want to do before you move or place any models is plan, pre-measure, and check everything. The Vrogger is going to need to walk, leap, get within tongue range. That's pretty feasible, but you'll notice based on the proxy base here that the walking lane is actually going to land him on my trapdoor marker. And while you can walk over top of the trapdoor marker, you cannot stay on top of it. You can't finish your movement on it. And this also just so happens to be the marker that my frogs will come from. So it's kind of one of the nice things about the design of Kithguard is that you can use these markers to kind of block off your opponent. But when it comes time for you to actually do your own activations, there are a lot of mechanisms for you to remove these out of your own way. And so I don't really need to be worried about this trapdoor marker. I need to be worried about my frogs, my baby frogs, not blocking the big frog. Now you remember, turn 1, I cast Tactical Supremacy on them. And one of the special things about Craghorn is he has the ability to upkeep spells while you're in the tunnels. So they're actually going to get this opportunity to come out of the tunnel. And we're checking, all the ranges and everything to make sure everyone can see targets. And that, they're going to be able to fire on the Nashers. But they're also going to be able to, at the end of this, Tactical Supremacy out of the big frog's way, out of the Vrogger's way, back around the tree and out of line of sight of any charge ranges. And so you're kind of getting this idea of a 1-2 punch, where I'm going to get really 2 turns of use out of the frogs, where they can come up, they can do their initial round of shooting, and then the next turn they're going to be safe from retaliation, and then they can do it again. This is what it kind of looks like when you're trying to plan your Kithguard actions and traps, a turn or 2 in advance. The other thing I'm doing is I'm checking kind of the top flank to see, do I want the scrappers to come out? Obviously, it is much stronger on Craghorn's feet turn to bring out 2 units out of trapdoors. You can feet for that extra damage. But in this situation, the frogs are too far away, and I don't really want to commit the scrappers just yet. So we're just going to move down to the... I keep calling the frogs. I don't know the names of anything in this game. But they're going to start shooting at the Nashers. And I'm not sponsored by Baron of Dice, so I can just blame him and call him the Baron of Stone Cold Dice, because this does not go very well. I think I do like 2 or 3 damage total. And the funny part is I actually made sure I was out of Starcroft's range for this as well. It's a dice game. You do what you can do. You light a couple guys on fire. But realistically, their shooting doesn't amount to much. That's unfortunate to me, but that's the other side of this, making sure that it's a very low risk positioning for me. So yeah, I didn't really accomplish a lot, but I also made sure that I didn't cost myself anything in the attempt. And so that's kind of what's important. So right now I'm just making sure that I know where the frog needs to walk, I know where he needs to land, and I'm going to make sure that I don't get in my own way. And that's really a big part of this. The other part is making sure I'm going to use this nice big forest in the middle, deny line of sight, and hide behind there like the brave coward that I am. Now, with everything pre-measured out, it's a pretty simple action. You walk, you force to leap, and you end up exactly where you intended to be. And so the Vrogger is going to do that, and he's going to shoot out his tongue, and he's going to lick my opponent's, I believe it's called Ravager, big model. He's going to lick my opponent's big model. And he's going to drag him base to base. He's going to do some frog fighting, use his fists. We're not going to go too crazy without the Animus up and having to pay for the leap. The Vrogger is just not going to hit that hard. So, take a couple swings, nothing big deal, but we're going to leave him open as a transfer target. And I also don't want to go too crazy on my Fury spending, so that way, I don't end up with anything frenzying this early in the game. If you are sending a beast in there and you think it's a one-way trip, go all out, don't worry about it. But in this case, I'm trying to play conservatively, and so we're going to be conservative focus. But Clangor's there, and it's just kind of the 1-2 punch. Claymore will make up for the frogs, and the Baron of Hot Dice now will be on my side, and he's just going to go ahead and finish up that heavy whatever in the world it's named. But it really speaks to how well the cadre actually fits within the greater Kithguard army that you're able to kind of take some of these pieces and you're just going to add them in. They work very seamlessly as long as you've kind of given a little bit of thought on how they're going to function within your army. So I do really like the cadre within Kithguard. It's not, you can't say that about every cadre, but I think this one worked out well. He's just going to throw up Spiny Growth because I have the Fury and he has the Spiny Growth, and you may as well just do it. On the top flank, we just have Fell Eye. He's going to move on up. He's going to get some line of sight, and he's going to take some shots on the Execrators. Again, this is just going to my game plan of I want to just kind of weaken my opponent a little bit, see if I can't pick off some stuff in the early game, and do so in such a way that it doesn't cost me anything. So he's going to, again, take his shots. They're awkwardly, they're behind an obstruction, so he's just going to pick on the one who doesn't get any of the bonuses. And for better or for worse, he ends up not doing any meaningful damage. I think he chips off a little bit. So after I do that, I look at my opponent in the eye and I go, do these guys have vengeance? And it turns out, yes, they absolutely do. So that is right there. That is an example of mistake. And so I really encourage folks to ask about such things before making their attacks. The whole purpose of these videos is for you to be better than me. So yeah, I just triggered vengeance and I didn't get anything out of it. So should have just kept my sniper where he was, or maybe had him pick on the Nashers. The one saving grace I'm going to hope for him is that since he is fully within the woods, he is going to get ammunition, and maybe we'll get lucky. You never know. Then as far as Mr. Rattles, I was a little displeased with myself for triggering the vengeance. So at that point, I didn't really know what to do with him. So he's just going to mope around the middle of the table there. He will eventually make me another trap here in a moment. So that way I've got 3 traps back on the table to give my scrappers kind of a little bit of... yeah, you can see the indecision here. Just give my scrappers a little bit of options on where they want to come out. Again, you're kind of keeping this idea open of you have a lot of positioning that is very difficult for your opponent to either counter, or it's very difficult for them to predict where you're going to come out. And so you're going to be able to engage as you want to. I probably could have done better things with Rattles, but it is what it is.
Well, we can definitely say that we did not see that one coming. So, as I mentioned, with the cognitive load, mistakes were made, and unfortunately I lost a Ravager as a result of the Frogger's jump and tongue and pull in, and it just did not turn out well. If it was just the Frogger, I might have been able to survive that, but the combination of Frogger and Klinger definitely made it a problem. So here we're looking at an opportunity. Where can I pick up pieces? My first thought was to go into the Froggers and potentially get an engagement on the Frogger, so that way he would have to use either a domino card if he has it, or something that would allow me to just kind of tie up the Frogger so that I don't lose any other pieces. And then Clangor's kind of out in the distance. I'm not necessarily worried about it since we've kind of shifted the table a little bit. We're not necessarily playing a straight-on match anymore. It's more about a diagonal. I also think I might be able to get some action with the top Execrators. Maybe try and pick up the sniper, take that flag. Between a combination of my objective, his flag, and my flag, go up by 3, put my opponent on basically a notice of, hey, I am now officially in the lead, and anything that you and I do, if I can just contest what you're doing and maintain that league, I can just play the long game, hopefully, and make sure that I'm scoring enough points that by the time the game ends, I'm up on points, or we start making bad trades just trying to gain points off of me. So the other thing I want to try and take out is maybe I can get some shots into the Private Rattles. If I can shut down the creation of the trapdoors, I don't have to have that constant nag in the back of my mind of where units are, because his scrappers still aren't on the table yet. So there's a threat there that I need to basically address, while keeping in mind that I don't necessarily put the scrappers or give the scrappers an easy charge onto something. The problem with the going after the frogs, though, was my Nashers have the ability to make the distance on the frogs, but not the line of sight, and then has the line of sight on the Frogger, but not the distance. So I'm going to end up having to do something different with them. So we go through the vengeance move. I get my execrators to come out from the ledge. I kind of see a bit of a threat with that Frogger tongue onto my champion, but he's, on one hand, I want to keep him safe, but on the other hand, he's literally at the tip of that piece of terrain. He doesn't really have much more he can do. He just kind of has to sit there and hopefully just not get tongued. We moved the Gnashers up. Since we don't have the charge, I basically use the Gnashers to do a triangle around the trapdoor that is over there to make sure that it's can't be used as something to come up on. And then position myself to try and get another turn charge, or at least keep them safe from Frogger or somebody else, tongue licking them and picking them up. But if I can get another charge on the frogs in the following turn, great. And then we'll just do that way, because ideally the units don't necessarily contribute to the scoring, they just contribute to attrition. We have the Tyrant go up. He basically puts himself towards the objective, and we're kind of going to sit there with the intent of the objective. We use the cannon, we boost it, and we end up getting the kill and pick up the private rattles, so that at least the trapdoor creation has been shut off for this turn, or for the game. I have my caster come up as the backup, also to kind of keep him safe from any shots that might come through, giving him the cover on the objective. And then I have the Warlord. He is going to also position himself up to be another opportunity if they come around the other direction of the forest. So whether they come the left or the right of the forest, I have charges that I can potentially pull off. Here we go in with a charge for the execrators onto the sniper. This is my hope of shifting the flag over to my scoring, and we do end up picking him up as a result. He does get a repositioning move, which means the initial charge guy won't be able to reach, but then after the teleport of the other two to get into formation, they can get the swing onto him. So sometimes when you're dealing with something that has admonition-like effects, get something to go in deep, trigger the admonition, and then have the other two placed so that they can still get swings. You'll lose the initial one, but at least you still get the other swings. And since it's only a singular model, it's not too much of an issue to necessarily pick him up. So we do get that 3-point swing, and we'll pass the clock over to, or pass the turn over to Gaston, and basically put him on scenario notice.
Things happened last turn, and if that was the Orgoth strike back, then we had better make this turn Revenge of the Kith. We talk a lot on the channel about the 3 pillars of gameplay: scenario, material, and tempo. Turn 3 is really the meat and potatoes of any Warmachine game, so I want to highlight those as I step through and analyze what my opponent did and how I now have to react to him. I think my pillars have certainly taken a hit, maybe they've even cracked a little bit, but they're not quite collapsed either. So as highlighted previously, I made 2 major errors last turn, namely triggering Vengeance with Felii and just hanging rattles out in the wind. I may claim to be perfect, but hey, my bad. RIP rattles, sorry the internet got to see that. Naturally, my opponent capitalized in several important ways. He bumping off rattles, reduces my access to the trapdoor markers, which would be more important in larger point games, but I only have 1 unit remaining in ambush, so I can accept this. Ring the shame bell on me, but I'm ready to move on. Much more importantly is the execrator sweeping down my flank. They're removing Felii, taking my flag. This represents a threat to try to collapse not only my scenario pillar, but tempo as well. Scenario is pretty obvious, he's scoring points, I'm not. But not just that, his presence on my flag is considerable. Execrators are not trivial to try to remove, and every turn they exist, there is a net negative to my scoring. That's a lot of pressure on me. Even more importantly, he has done 2 things to blunt me on tempo. Now I have to go backwards to resolve this execrator issue before it gets out of control, and he has surrounded my forwardmost trapdoor marker to deny me forward progress across the table, trying to kind of hem me into my own table half. Now I personally find both of these things to be quite offensive, and so I think I should pay him back in kind. That is the only fair thing to do. And fortunately for me, Kithguard are extremely positionally flexible. So the plan here is to bring out the scrappers from the rear trapdoor, you've already seen them pop up there on camera, and have them tackle the execrators. This will naturally be my feet turn, so they're going to be as pumped up as possible, and then we're going to have the frogs charge into the Gnashers. We're going to roll better this time, I promise you, right? Then the Vrogger is going to be an interesting piece, particularly at 50 points. He's really, really powerful. He's going to move, he's going to leap up, and he's going to tongue drag that solo off my opponent's back flag. And so at that point, my opponent's flank will have completely collapsed. But if I diminish his resources appropriately, he's not going to have anything left to go grab that flag. And this is what we talk about with the material collapse, which is where I'd expect most of these lower point games to end up. If everything goes well, my opponent is simply not going to have the models, the material assets left to play the game, regardless of whether or not I'm actively pursuing capturing his scenario elements. And even post-collapse, so never forget your opponent is still dangerous. Taking out one of these strategic pillars is what forces people into those desperate assassination attempts, so never let your guard down. So if that's the analysis, that's the game plan, time to execute. What could go wrong, right? Bearing a cold dice? So to catch up with the video a little bit, I upkept countermeasures, I let tactical supremacy go, and I definitely wanted to set 3 Fury aside for Carnage, thanks to Starcross being up. So Craghorn leads off, he feeds, he moves up, puts Spiny Growth on himself for free, and he's just shooting some good old shots with Daisy, trying to put some damage on the Nashers. Truly, I want to make sure that they go down this time. I'm still a little burned from last turn. Obviously, we're going to have the Carnage up as well. Now, we have a Vrogger. He's going to go up, he's going to leap, and I don't know what the heck that thing is called, but he is going to lick it. And the fun fact with this is that he is also happens to be within 5 inches of the other Warbeast. And that guy's got a big scary gun. But not anymore, because with countermeasures, there is no shooting. And so I have also now completed my use every spell on the caster card bingo for this game. So again, I don't know what the solo is called, but it doesn't matter, because the Vrogger lights it on fire, licks it to death with his fists. So, good job, Big Frog. Very proud of you. Yep, that's my opponent. Successfully failing his tough check. Thank you for the help. So now moving up to the top of the board, we're going to have the Scrappers go. Now they're going to have the feet up, they're going to have sneak attack up. They are as buffed as I can make them do. Only one of them is actually within Starcrossed, so that's the one, he's in the back, that's the one we're going to kind of lead off on. When you're choosing kind of your order of activations for making all of your models attacks, you want to go with the model who has the least options first, and just get those out of the way, and then move towards the models who have the most options for making attack rolls. That way you don't end up with any like regrets on, oh, this guy's out of threat range, or he, just had that option and it got taken away because someone got, hot dice or whatever. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're going through and, doing attacks with units. They're going to do okay. They're not going to do great. I think they knock off like one of the Execrators and like another one Toughson is knocked down. So it's, It's also about this time that I figured out my dice problems. I finally solved them. I'm rolling on the table. I'm not using the dice tray, the Gravedigger dice tray that I stole from Trig. So I'm going to make sure to swipe that little bastard before our next game, and we're going to fix this dice issue. I am also going to burn the reposition card on them. And a full disclosure, a little embarrassing. We were using the new cards for this game, and me being me, I did not bother to read them because me. So I repositioned the entire unit, not one model. You only need one model to contest, so it's not really that big a deal, but I am going to be upfront with my mistakes. Or in this case, just blatant cheating, whichever you want to call it. So the Execrators, they're not out of the way, but they are substantially weakened, which is what we need them to be. So with that going on, now we have Klinger moving up. So again, we're going to get into that thing where there's a fantasy game and I don't bother to learn the names of anything, but up there in the middle of the table, there is some sort of weird looking solo. And I don't know what he is, but he is freaking me out. So I have a large troll. That large troll likes to throw large bullets, and so he's going to move up and he's going to throw a lot of large bullets, just as a solo guy. And it's not going to matter what the solo guy's name is, because his new name is going to be Blast Crater at the end of this activation. What matters a lot more when we're walking through this is the positioning. What I'm doing when I'm positioning here is much more important to me than attack. I'm setting up for 2-player turns in the future. I'm anticipating that where I've put my Big Frog now, he's a sacrifice piece. There's a heavy there, the heavy's going to come in, he's going to kill the frog, and now I have to re-secure that flank. And so I'm setting up my heavy to be able to go in and do exactly that. So I'm putting my model up there, I'm taking down his scenario flag, I'm locking down his shooting, but I'm also anticipating that sacrifice, that trade piece coming out. And that's exactly what we're that's what it looks like to plan, a turn and a half ahead, we're talking player turns, not rounds. So he passes tough check, but that's okay because I'm going to reload. And yeah, goodbye, buddy. No one liked you anyway. There's a bunch of blasts on the Nashers. Oh, couple damage. That's not going to matter because the fribbits are charging in, and my god, do they actually hit pretty hard. If you want to really appreciate these guys, now's your chance. They're going to wipe out the Nashers. It's not even going to be a contest on that one, so good job, guys. But what we wanted to really illustrate here is this is what a material collapse looks like. Where at the end of this turn, all the different scenario elements are locked down, they're contested. My opponent simply will not have the pieces, the models left to play the game. Like, I don't have to go and, attack his flag. He doesn't have anything left on it. He's either going to have to run his Warcaster over or just let go of that scenario element. And that's really what we want to illustrate here, and that's kind of what the game plan looks like a lot at these lower point games. So we put him in a hole. Hopefully it's deep enough that he is not going to be able to get out of there. That's the goal. We will find out on his turn. Yeah, get that Nasher. Get him off the table.
So the challenge here is I put him on notice, and basically he had to do something about it. If he did absolutely nothing and didn't stop any of my scoring, then I would have turned around and gone 6-1 or 6-2. Would have had enough at the end of the turn to score higher than him and would have won on a scenario. Unfortunately, not only did he prevent my scoring of things, but he actually removed the pieces that allowed for the scoring, or in the case of the Vrogger, put himself into contesting range to prevent any scoring. So, he's given me the Vrogger, but Craghorn is right behind, and since I've already lost the Ravager and now I've lost the champion for the flag scoring, I'm in this bind of I've been put where I tried putting him on the back foot, he has retaliated in turn and put me on the back foot. I'm running, I won't say running out of pieces, I still have a good chunk of my army, but it becomes a situation where I need this turn to be a very successful turn for me so that I can switch over and get enough control points. He has been very cautious with Craghorn to make sure that he's not putting Craghorn in any position where I might be able to get any damage on him. Now, ideally, if I can free up the execrators from the scrappers, then I have a couple Thunderbolt shots that I could potentially pull off. And then if I can get some Dark Fire off with the caster, maybe. But that's a big maybe. So right now I'm thinking of, I've got two beasts too close for comfort. I'm going to put my caster into range of, or give him some distance for scoring. It is going to mean that I'm going to have to back off and not have that redundant scoring with him. I guess I probably could have gone, I tend to go behind the statue for the cover, but in hindsight I probably could have gone the other direction, still been behind the statue, but close enough that it maybe could have been the secondary scoring for that objective. But I do decide this is probably a good time for feat. It gives me the opportunity to get some souls that I can convert over next turn, so maybe I go for a big push to just Darkfire Clangor or go after a caster or something like that. But the biggest thing is it also gives my battle group Shadowbind, so that I will be able to put some Shadowbind on the Vrogger to make sure that I can convert him over to a dead Vrogger without having a bunch of focus in order to do so. And then obviously the other big push is I need to clear out the scrappers up by the flag so that I can continue scoring at least a point this turn and keep the scoring going. I had contemplating about moving the caster towards the flag, but that's risky in of itself. It's better to keep him safe. So now we're going to activate the Tyrant. He's going to go in to pick up the Vrogger, which will allow me to at least score the objective one more turn. Unfortunately, it also means that I'm going to only score that 1 point because Clangor will pick up the Tyrant in the following turn. So this is where peace trading ends up going in a bad state. If I had the Ravager that I lost early in the game, maybe it would have been a different conversation, but if he ends up picking up this heavy in the following turn, it's just my caster, and I don't necessarily think that he's going to be able to pull it out on killing out a Jack. So the only other option is that I pray for the dice gods to show me favor, and he doesn't quite pick up the tyrant completely. But if we can still push for scenario if we get the Nashers freed up and the Execrators freed up. They're not scoring potential, but maybe I can push for a scenario threat. So that's my intent here, is let's get those things freed up for a following turn. Even when you feel like you're on the back foot, there's always a plan that allows you to continue for another turn, as long as your caster is alive and you have other things on the table that can contribute towards the game. So that's the position I'm in. I'm gonna try and clean up and then bait out what I can or clear out what I can. Unfortunately, we go through the activations and it's a slap fight up top. I don't get the scrappers out, so I don't score the flag up on that objective. More importantly, I don't free up my Execrators to be able to do Thunderbolt damage into the caster. So we'll pass the turn over to them with no major scoring.
As expected, the Virager has crossed the Rainbow Bridge. But we will miss it. It will be back again soon, I promise. And it's pretty okay. Warmachine is a peace trading game. That went exactly as anticipated, and we have Clangor set up in the perfect position to charge in and avenge him. The Scrappers came out of the fray in much better shape than I had possibly expected, and so Baron of Dice, you are back in my good graces until next turn. I think at this point we can pretty much see where the game is headed. We're going to take the Scrappers, they're going to go into the Execrators, we're going to put Clangor into the Heavy Warbeast, and now I'm just moving up my caster, make sure everybody is in control range, throwing up Carnage again, and that's going to naturally offset Starcrossed. Clangor is charging on in, he's rolling a bunch of dice, they're looking pretty good on camera, and he will at some point chop down that Heavy Warbeast. I guess the reason I don't ever learn their names is because they keep dying. So, hey, that is a great strategy. I promise next video I will actually pull up my opponent's list and figure out what these models are. This has been a thing with me for the last 15 years across every single game I played. So, going into this game, I was concerned because I wanted to make sure that we had a game that really demonstrated the mechanics of the Kithguard. And I feel like it's really hard to do that within the limits of a 50-point game. There's a couple different factions within Warmachine where you really need to get up into the bigger level games to have the depth in your list in order to really see how these mechanics interact. Oldumbri is another one. But within Kithguard, I don't have the Tunnel Rats on the table. And so you're not going to have the ability, see a lot of the trapdoor manipulation. And I didn't really have a very deep ambush bench in this game. I only had 2 units in Tunnel Ambush. But what I really hope is that we got through a lot on how they play, what it looks like to kind of play with them, and that it was very useful to watch. Here we have the frogs running, and they're going to play Capture the Flag. But this game, I hope, really illustrated how you can position the traps for like an early alpha strike. And even if that doesn't quite go as planned, you can still fall back into your second rank of traps for that positional and tactical flexibility in the mid-game to get that second strike. And what you really want to get out of Kithguard is this ability to pick and choose these engagements, to put your best strength exactly into your opponent's greatest weakness. And so what you're going to, study up on and learn as you play this faction, play this army, and play the game is what are your opponent's weaknesses and where is the right unit for the right job. And that's really what I think you want to focus on as you go on this Kith journey and work to grow as a player. We just have the Scrappers finishing off the Execrators here, and that'll take the flag, and then I'll own all 4 scenario elements for scenario victory. But really, I want to say thank you for watching, and also be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on the table.
So I'm going to take this time. The game's kind of in hand. I'm not going to be able to necessarily do enough to contest on the thing. So I go through an activation of, here, let's have some fun, and let's see if we can Darkfire Clangor. I was originally going to go after the frogs, just because how dare they? But unfortunately, the frogs have stealth, and I don't have the distance to go them. So I just throw the Clangor out. But I do want to take this time to say playing against Kithguard was an amazing time. I did mention about the cognitive load, and I think that's kind of the fun of it, is that you're playing this unknown puzzle that you have to figure out. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube when some of the colors are missing from it. So this was an amazing time, an amazing game, and I really enjoyed playing Gaston.